And happy Friday, everybody. It is 5/14/21. So I'm off at a track meet. So let's do this lesson via my recordings, okay? So today, once again, this is not a right triangle. So we need something besides what's up on the board, the sine, cosine, and tangent. Yesterday we learned this thing called the law of sines, and it dealt with knowing a pair of opposites. In this example, you do not know a pair of opposites, so you need another formula. So we're going to learn today the law of cosines. Right? So to do the law of cosines, let me go ahead and scratch out a little picture for you so you can see that what we have is an angle. We'll call it theta. And we have two sides. There is no hypotenuse at all. There is no hypotenuse, so there's an opposite side. Okay? And these two sides are both next to my angle, so those are my adjacent sides. So, no hypotenuse, but there's an opposite, and two adjacent sides. So in this case, we have two adjacent sides. This is my adjacent, this is my adjacent, and this is my opposite side, okay? So the formula goes like this. And it's kind of a long formula, but that's okay. The formula is, let's see if I can squeeze it in here. That it's the opposite squared. That's the side squared is equal to the adjacent side squared plus the other adjacent side squared. Subtract 2, and 2's in the formula, times the adjacent side times the other adjacent side times the cosine of your angle. Okay, write that down. I'm going to highlight that, okay? That's my law of cosines. Now, there's one more step, and that is you're going to have to take the square root of your answer because it's opposite squared, okay? So, if that's our formula, opposite squared is equal to adjacent squared plus adjacent squared minus 2 times adjacent times the cosine of the angle, let's look at this triangle here, okay? So this triangle here, I'm going to set up opposite square, which would be little side A, little a, which is the opposite side squared, equals the adjacent squared, which is 10 squared, plus the other adjacent squared, plus 11 squared, subtract 2 times your adjacent squared, which is my 10, times my other adjacent, which is my 11, times the cosine of my angle, which is 50. Now, it's kind of a big formula, but with these calculators, it's actually not too bad because I'll be able to type the whole thing. I'll check my mode. Always check your mode. Make sure you're in degree mode because I almost made a big mistake by not being in degree mode. So, let's put it in, just like it says. I'm going to go. Ready? 10 squared plus 11 squared. Subtract 2 times 10 times 11 times the cosine of 50, and I get an answer. Well, that answer is way too big because it's a squared equals my 79.58 blah 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 blah. So we're going to take the square root. I take the square root of that. I get the square root of that answer. I get about 8.9. So that side is about 8.9, okay? Now, if you need to solve this triangle, what we could do then is use our opposites to get our other angle, which is what we learned yesterday. So if I wanted to find angle C, and easier formula, I have opposite now. So I can find the C by what we learned yesterday, which was the law of sines. So the law of sines went like this. We're going to go sine of theta 1 over its opposite side equals sine of theta 2 or sine of c over its opposite side, okay? And then I will multiply up the 10, and I'll go, okay, so clear, I'll go 10 times my sine of 50, close the parentheses, divided by 8.9. I get a decimal. I anticipated that because I'm going to do the sine inverse of that answer, sine inverse of that answer, and I get an answer about 59.4 degrees. So I get an angle C is about 59.4 degrees. Okay, pause the film anytime it gets going too fast for you or you get behind, okay? So this is 59.4, and of course, finding angle B is easy from 180 degrees. Angle B is just going to be 180 minus parentheses, my sum of my two angles, 50 plus my 59.4. 180 minus parentheses, 50 plus 59.4, and I get an answer of angle B is about 70.6 degrees. Okay? Now, oh, sorry, I can't see it. Now you can. Okay, so I just found it. Now the area, we learned yesterday that the area is 1/2. This is yesterday's formula, the adjacent side times the other adjacent side times the sine, that's a sine of the angle. Okay, so we learned that yesterday. So here's my adjacent, and there's my angle. So we're just going to go 1/2 10 times 11 times the sine of 50 degrees, 1/2 adjacent times sine of the angle. If I use my calculator to get that, just going to go 1/2 times 10 times 11 times the sine, because that's the formula, sine of 50, and I get an answer of about 42.1 centimeters squared. Okay, how am I doing? Okay, turn the page. Oops, sorry, I'll put it back, just in case you still copy that down, okay? All right, and again, you can ask the substitute to pause it anytime you want, okay? Turn the page, okay? Now, example 2. So example 2, there's no opposites. In fact, there's no angles, but you have, so you know, side, side, side. I know all three sides, so we can find an angle by the law of cosines again. Okay, what we're going to do is this. We're going to take the formula that's on the front, and I'm going to rewrite it. I'm going to rewrite it in a form that's more convenient to find the cosine, okay? So, we're going to rewrite this for, so to find an angle, I'm going to write cosine of theta equals parentheses. Super important you have the parentheses. You're going to go adjacent 1 squared plus the other adjacent squared. Subtract the opposite side squared parentheses. Big division divided by parentheses 2 times my adjacent times my other adjacent parentheses. Now the parentheses are super important because in the calculator you have to have the entire top divided by the entire bottom. Okay, so that's my formula. Then the next thing I need to do, since I'm looking for the angle, I'm going to take the cosine inverse of that answer. Okay, here's my law of cosines again, but written for the angle. Okay, so let's see how we can use it. So in this example, this triangle, I have three angles I don't know, P, I, and G. Okay, it doesn't really matter which one you solve for first, but you have to pick an angle. You must start with an angle. So if I start with angle P, okay, if angle P is the angle I want to work with, then that forces the side 5 to be an adjacent side, and the 8 to be the other adjacent side, which makes the 7 my opposite side, okay? So let's set a formula, okay? I'm going to use my formula. I'm going to go cosine of P, angle P, equals, parentheses, let's see, adjacent squared, so 5 squared, plus my other adjacent squared, plus 8 squared. Subtract my opposite squared, which is minus 7 squared, parentheses, divided by, parentheses, 2 times my adjacent side, which is 5, times my other adjacent side, which is 8, okay? I should get a decimal. I'm going to be careful of my parentheses, right? Okay. All right, so here we go. Clear. Parentheses, so I'm just going to do this part. 5 squared plus 8 squared, subtract 7 squared, parentheses. Have to have the parentheses. Divided by parentheses. 2 times 5 times 8, parentheses. Now I'm going to get a decimal. I anticipate a decimal, so I got cosine of P equals 0.5. And now I'm going to take the cosine inverse of 0.5, and I'll get angle P, right? That's my second step, is cosine inverse of that. So I go cosine inverse of 0.5, and I get an answer about 60 degrees. Angle P is 60 degrees, okay? Now, if I go back up and put my 60 degrees here, then I have a pair of opposites. I get angle G next. So you could use this same formula again if you wanted to get angle G or angle I. I like the law of sines, it's easier. So with the law of sines, I have my pair of opposites, right? Now let's find angle G. Okay, so I'm going to use my law of sines. Now that I have this 60-degree angle, I will go sine of 60 over 7 equals, I'm running out of room here, sine of G over 5. I'll cross multiply up the 5. I'll have 5 times the sine of 60 over 7. I anticipate a decimal because I'm going to have to take the sine inverse. So clear my calculator. 5 times the sine of 60 divided by 7. And I'm going to take the sine inverse of that, right? Got to take the sine inverse of that answer. Have to do the sine inverse of this 0.618, blah, 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 blah. So sine inverse of that answer, because I need the angle. That's my angle button. I get about 38.2. So angle G is about a 38.2. And then finally, to find my third angle, we can just subtract from 180. Okay, I'll squeeze that in here. I'll have angle I is equal to 180 minus parentheses, the sum of my two angles. Okay, and I'm just going to use my calculator. And I'm going to go 180 minus parentheses, 60 plus my 38.2, and I get an answer of about 81.8 degrees. Now, let's scoot this up for you. Homework. Let's scoot this up further. Homework, and this is due Monday, is going to be page 270. Page 270, I want you to do 2 through 8 even, and the extra is number 9. Okay, that's all I have. I'll be back Monday. Please do this. Don't be a slacker. Do this. Get a good grade. Learn how to do it.